So let's transition. If you're ready there, Randy, you want to move over?
Let's do it.
All right, let's move over to ESGR. That is Employer Support Guard and Reserve. Now, they obviously, just in the name, employer support for the Guard and Reserve is really what it is. They're kind of, I guess, focused on assisting, we'll call it, the employers out there in understanding the laws surrounding reservist and National Guard members, specifically when you deploy or you have your drills or your annual training, that type of stuff. And I've heard it 1,000 times. My employer doesn't want me to go, they're giving me a hard time or whatever. If you have issues, you can always get the Employer Support Guard and Reserve involved. They're great people. I've worked with them often, and they can help explain to your HR team or leadership at your organization how it all really works and why it works that way in a very friendly way. It's not like you're calling in, the FBI to do some sort of interrogation on these people. They're friendly, good people. Oftentimes they are volunteers for the organization. There are a few paid positions, but really it's a lot of us for us aspect. It's a lot of retired folks from the military. I knew, a retired general who ran the state of California, a guy who did a regional area who was a retired colonel, so these are people who had served for a long time, and they get it, and they know how to be politically savvy when having these conversations, right? So it's not that big of a deal. I did want to give a quick overview of what ESGR is and how they kind of help, and then I wanted to give a little more insight, and then we can dive in a little deeper with you, Randy, as well. So on their website, first of all, there are a bunch of tabs. So you could just Google search ESGR, check them out yourself. But they have the tabs up at the top with actually subcategories under each tab. I'm not going to read them all. Just going to go through a few of the top tabs here. There's a tab for about ESGR, then employers, service members and family, volunteers, employer awards. That's a huge one. They do some great awards and recognition to companies out there. USERRA, which is your protections, legal protections for you as a reservist or National Guard member, news and events, and then a resource library. I'm going to read to you here, how can ESGR help? ESGR understands the unique talents and skill set Guard and Reserve service members can bring to the civilian workforce. To make this arrangement work, both parties, they're talking about the employer and you as a guardsman or reservist, must be aware of their rights and responsibilities under the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, USERRA. And then there's more information on USERRA, but really it's bridging that gap. I'm going to throw out there one of my favorite things that ESGR coordinates, Randy, and then I'm going to kick it to you for your thoughts on ESGR. So one of my favorite things that they do is recognize employers, and in doing that, they will coordinate with reserve components, whether it's a National Guard unit, a reserve unit, or even a Coast Guard reserve unit. And they'll coordinate with them to do what's called boss lifts. I've done, I think, 3 of them. I've been to 3. 2 were with the Army National Guard, coordinated with ESGR, where the employers are invited to a armory or a base or wherever somewhere. Then you go off to where there's actually an airstrip. Maybe it's the Air National Guard. You go over there, or maybe you go to an Army Guard base where there's some helicopters, and they will actually take the employers up in an aircraft, fly them around, land in another location, let them kind of see some static displays, that type of stuff, to give the employers, many of these employers aren't aware of how the military even works. So it's good exposure for them to kind of see some of the things that you deal with, be in some of the environments that you're in, and understand the complexity and the big picture, kind of. There's some, some talking, different leadership will talk to the employers, and those are great. We did one with the Coast Guard as well, and went off on a cutter in the San Francisco Bay, and took the employers out on that, and that was a great experience as well. So I really, really love how they uh, recognize the employers and give them a glimpse into the day of the life of the reservist or National Guard member, their employee. So not only are they working for you 40 hours a week, they come and do this for another X number of hours, right? Is kind of the idea that they're giving. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on ESGR and go from there, Randy.
Boss lifts are always a highlight, and I've noticed that bases call them, something slightly different. But I'll tell you, most of our civilian employers that are out there do not have a connection to the military. I think it's 3% of the United States has served. So there's 97% chance that your boss has no idea what world that you're coming from. So it's a wonderful thing. I know, I'm personally a guardsman and have been a guardsman for 12 years. I love the guard community. And anytime a boss lift took place, it was a highlight on our base. And, these employers would just come out of the aircraft with, big eyes, and just, it was an event that they would remember for years to come. And it made them a lot more empathetic towards their employee who happens to wear a uniform 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, probably more than that. All of us in the Guard know it ends up being a little more than that. So I think it's a wonderful organization. I think there's some folks that are watching this video right now that might think, well, geez, and they're talking about Guard and reserves, which comprise the reserve component, and I'm active duty. This may not really apply to me. I would disagree. There is a ton of information on the ESGR website that can pertain to active duty service members. So if you're on the active duty side of things or you're a spouse, don't be afraid to go to esgr.mil, an official DoD website, and browse around a little bit, because I don't think that this website was intended only to educate the Guard and Reserve community. I think there's a lot of good nuggets that are out there. Moving back in the conversation, you kind of opened up the ESGR piece with how they work with employers. And I will tell you, you were right on the money, Jason. They don't come in with a heavy hand. These are not people that are there to lecture your employer or create even more acrimony, if there already is, between the employer and the employee due to a reserve or Guard service requirement. They're not there for that. They come in with a gentle touch. They come in with the mindset that we're here to focus on the concern. And the concern is what it is. Let's address the concern. Let's get it resolved in a way that works for everybody and move on in life. They are not there to laser focus on the employer or gaslight the employee or any of these other things that you might worry about. They're a problem-solving, focused organization when they go into that mode. Now, there's a lot of other things that they do, but I would not hesitate to use their services if you're running into some of those challenges. And those, on the Guard and Reserve side, that can come around, several different things. That can be your annual tour. That could be a week, that could be 2 weeks, that could be a deployment. Sometimes this new 3-day drill weekend thing that's popping up in a lot of states and, other areas is becoming a challenge. So drill is no longer just Saturday and Sunday during some months. In some states, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they might give you a month off, but that Friday becomes an issue. It's not part of the regular cadence. It is disruptive beyond that annual tour, that 14 days a year, setting aside deployments, of course, and schools. So the ESGR can get involved and help smooth out some of those barriers. I know, in my personal experience, the complaints that I have heard from my fellow guardsmen have been around, these kind of pop-up quarterly 3-day, or, oh, by the way, you've got an extra AT day we need you to do. These sort of unforeseen, things that pop up that all of a sudden they're going to their employer and saying, hey, I've got a lawful order here. They cut me orders for this day. I've got to go. And the employer is like, what?
Right.
Why didn't you tell me a month or two ago so I could have done a little planning? And then they get frustrated, rightfully so, because they don't understand. Back to the whole boss lift thing. They don't know what you do when you throw in the bag and go out to base. So they can do a lot of good things. Jason talked about the website. There's stuff for employers. There's stuff for employees. There is just kind of a whole ecosystem of information there for ESGR. Again, it's not just about, the reserve component. There's stuff there for active duty too, that I think they can take from that. If you want to learn about USERRA, which are your rights, I strongly recommend you go to the USERRA tab and just start with what is USERRA. I think probably 80% of the people watching this channel have some general idea of what it is, but most of them, most viewers probably can't tell you the nitnoid details. And you can't tell someone they're breaking the law if you don't know the law yourself, right? So you got to understand what these laws are and gently at times inform your employers. So I'd recommend, maybe even as a starting point, go to the USERRA tab and click on what is USERRA. And they don't, spell out the whole law, which was passed in 1994. They give just kind of some highlights, and it gives you a kind of the big nuggets that you need. So I'll kick it back over to you, Jason, and get your thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. So USERRA is one of those things that, when you go into your lunchroom and they have all the posters hanging up from the federal government and the state regarding all your different, this is what minimum wage is, and here's all your rights as an employee. There's a spot on there that talks about USERRA. It's easy to find because it has all the branch seals, typically running across the portion of that section of the I don't know what you want to call it, poster that goes up. Now, what I wanted to say too here is we talked about it for a minute, and I'm gonna move over there in a second. But we're focused right now. ESGR, typically that's going to be your guard and reservists currently serving, and that's where they come into effect. Now, obviously, I mentioned that there's a lot of volunteers. If you feel like volunteering and being part of that program, by all means, they're always looking for more. I want to give you just their year in review highlights, just to give you an idea of what they kind of accomplished. So I'm just going to give you a snippet here. The overwhelming success or successes shown through 2023 were a direct result of the tremendous efforts from our team of more than 2,300 volunteers, whose combined total of 185,287 hours equates to a $5.89 million return on investment. This, coupled with the positive resolution of 1,172 Uniformed Service Employment and Reemployment Rights Act USERRA cases, resulted in millions of cost avoidance to the federal government. These results are a testament to our volunteers, supportive employers, ESGR staff, and the men and women who proudly serve in the National Guard and Reserve. So one of the things that they'll do if your employer is not connected with ESGR has their own awards and recognition. They'll have employers sign what's called a statement of support, supporting their employees that wear the uniform. So that is a great way for your employer to do something to kind of just show, hey, I support our military and our reservist and National Guard member employees through those statements of support. And then they'll also assign, or not assign, but award employers with what they call a Patriot Award. And now you have to be nominated, and then you get selected, and then you get like a little plaque, right? But it's another great way for your employer to be recognized. So last year they did, for USERRA cases assigned, there was 1,486. So don't think that they don't know what they're doing. Don't think that nobody ever talks to them about it. People do, and it's okay. Again, these are folks that are us for us. They're not going to put you in harm's way by going in and having a conversation. They're going to make it a better situation.